Hi, it's me, Kat. I'm back, and I want to do a YouTube video about something that is very difficult for me to talk about, yet at the same time, I feel like I should at this point. 30 years ago, about 30 years ago, I got out of a very difficult relationship. And I was told not to even talk about it. I couldn't even talk about it with my friends who I really wanted to talk about this subject with, but because my safety was generally, in jeopardy. So I was told not to discuss it. But now there are a lot of people discussing narcissists. They're discussing narcopaths. And essentially what happened when I was very young, I got into a relationship with a man who, because my therapists can't actually meet with him, they are trying to figure out exactly what, he is he's been called borderline personality, he's been called a narcissist, he's been called a psychopath, he's been called a sociopath. And then some people call him a narcopath. Now, how the relationship even started, people are so amazed when I tell them how it started. It started with a simple phone call, but in that phone call, he threatened me and he said, if you value your cat's lives, then you'll date me. I'm not a cat person, something along these lines. And it really scared me. And of course, I love my pets and I love my animals. And he threatened to do something awful to my pets if I didn't date him. The interesting thing is my mother asked me, is he even your type? And I said, well, not totally. And she thought, well, you have a choice. And I said, no, I don't. And she said, Catherine, you always have a choice. I said, no, I don't. And I told her the truth, and she laughed at me. Anytime I ever told anyone the truth, they laughed at me. When I talked to his friends and told them that they needed to talk to him, they laughed at me. They yelled at me. They called me curse words. It was awful. They just went off on a tirade of every awful thing they could think of to tell me. They told me. Now I've been in therapy for a very, very long time, and unfortunately, I have been in relationships with several people that are on that narcissistic spectrum. And essentially everyone has a little bit of narcissism in them. Unless, of course, you're someone that is an empath. And empaths, or highly sensitive people, or otherwise known as, sometimes they're even called heyokas. And the heyokas will actually reflect back to people their weaknesses, their flaws, and a lot of people are very put off by heyokas. So it's very rare for a narcissistic individual to go after supply that is actually a heyoka. But they do tend to go for empathic individuals or very loving individuals that care, people that either may do Reiki, they may be a doctor of some sort, they are usually in maybe work with children or animals, any kind of health areas. These are going to be your empathic people because they care. They generally care about people. They genuinely care about people. And narcissists and anyone that falls into that narcopath spectrum, they lack empathy. Their whole reason why they want to be with an empath is to learn. It was interesting because there was a day I will never forget, he actually turned to me and he said, "You need to teach me how to be more like you, because I don't have what you have." And in that point, I realized, okay, he actually just admitted that. That's really interesting. I went on in college. I studied psychology. I studied theater. I studied a few different things. But in my studies, when I was learning about behavioral psychology, of course, we talked about the sociopaths and the Ed Bundys and the Dahmers and the psychopaths of that kind, and narcissistic individuals. And it was then that I started to realize that the person that I was engaged to was on the spectrum of a few of these different things, and I was just completely floored and bewildered, and I was scared, quite honestly, because, you know, here we are studying about these mass murderers and things, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I really hope he's not going to go actually do these things that he was threatening to do. But in all reality, what it comes down to is the fact that they were all threats. He never actually acted on any of them. He did physically hurt me. He had a thing about putting bruises up and down my arms. He would grab my arms and he would throw me to the ground. One of the first times I actually tried to speak with him logically about going our separate ways, because he was going to college and I was going to boarding school, he threw me down onto a brick stair, and as you can probably see, my nose got broken. I mean, there are more instances, and I don't want to go on a whole gory story about all of them, but yeah, I mean, this stuff is real. I'm not making this up. And the thing is a lot of these individuals that are on the higher narcissistic spectrum, if you are able to get out of that relationship, it was, I mean, I had been in the relationship from age 12 to about age 25. And my mother was talking to a friend of hers, and I don't know how the whole situation came about, but they started to realize that something was very, very wrong. And my mom was actually pretty sick at the time, and actually was diagnosed with breast cancer. But I went to go stay with my mom and went through this major healing process. I met some really interesting people in the process of getting out of that relationship that helped me to learn how to heal. And I really want to share that with people. I know I generally share things of a spiritual nature on here, but because some of those, the ways that I learned how to heal are very spiritual. And one of the first things that I can remember is just it was cold, but I was outside. And it was this beautiful, beautiful area and near a river. And I just, I felt like there was something bigger than me. This universe has provided this beautiful, beautiful earth of ours. And I just kind of, enjoyed being in nature and enjoyed this beautiful, beautiful area that I was in. It was just so healing and so amazing. And, one of the fascinating things is hundreds of years ago, that river is where Native Americans used to go, and they considered the waters to be healing waters, partially because there is a sulfur springs very close by, and sulfur, as we know, as it's in many beauty products and all sorts of, things that help anti-aging and all of these things, you'll see a form of a sulfa or sulfites in there. And those properties actually have a lot of healing. Water is one of the most healing things to be around. It doesn't matter if it's running water from a river or an ocean or even just a simple glass of water. Just having that and drinking that in with an intention is so powerful. But the most powerful thing, of course, is having that intention that you want that water to heal you instead of just thinking, okay, I'm thirsty and I need a glass of water. Think about drinking that water and think about the intention of, I'm letting this water heal me. That was something that really kind of struck an interesting chord with me. I was reading a lot of books by Marianne Williamson. I read the Celestine Prophecy. I was reading books by the Dalai Lama, and I really became even more fascinated with Buddhism and practically every religion out there. So I studied a lot of different things at that time in my life. And it was fascinating for me to step out of my usual zone of everything that I believed in, because I had been very kind of stuck into a narrow-minded way of thinking, and I wanted to educate myself. I wanted to find out more. I just, in the very beginning of it, I'm gonna admit, I was crying all the time. I was really upset. But the interesting thing is when I was crying, when I was feeling awful, it was all because of the fact that he was going around, and because he wasn't controlling me anymore, he was trying to control how other people saw me. And so essentially what he did is he maligned my character. Every relationship that I've been in, it's interesting for me that people that are higher on the narcissistic spectrum, when you get out of a relationship with them, they tell people things that just simply aren't true. A lot of things are actually fabricated. And when I found out some of the truths from some of my either ex-husband or ex-boyfriend's, family, or someone was telling me something that they were saying, and they just laughed. They said they laughed internally because they knew it wasn't true about me at all. So it's just an interesting kind of phenomenon that when you're in a relationship with these kinds of people, when they can't control you anymore, they are going to do their best to malign your character. There is kind of a cycle that they go through. I have a few things written down, so I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So when they, kind of spot you, they target you, and they say, this is the person for me. Because, she's empathetic, or even women do this with men too. He's empathetic. He's, women quite often, a lot of the attributes are very similar. A woman narcissist, because I have met a few women that are narcissistic, they are very similar, but they will go for a more powerful man. So someone who, maybe a doctor, maybe a rock star, maybe, an actor, someone high-powered. Narcissistic women are very, very drawn to men that are very high-powered. And what they do, very similar to what the men do to women, is to start to demean them. So there's that cycle of first of, romancing. Oh, look at me. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I so love you. Let's be romantic. Let's go to the park for walks and I'll hold your hand. Let's go to the deli and we can get some strawberries and some chocolate and some yummy things. And, you know, then things can turn a little sour. They can actually start threatening either you or the people around you. So maybe family members, maybe friends, maybe old friends, the threats start to happen. Then they'll go back to being romantic again. Then they'll become a little bit more demeaning. Then they'll go back to being romantic again. Then they'll become even more demeaning. And then they'll start to do that in front of people. And when someone sees that kind of behavior and they're like, hold on a second, this isn't cool, what's happening? You know, when they try to talk to you about it, you honestly will defend them. It's just the way that it is. You're just gonna defend them. Because they've gotten you hooked in. And then, unfortunately, when they've really got you hooked in, that's when the abuse starts. And part of the reason why I really, really wanted to put this video up there is because I don't want people to get hurt. I have been through it several times now. And, you know, the thing is physical abuse sucks, but emotional abuse is even worse. You can't see it. And, you know, the thing is many, many times I've heard from people, yeah, but if you're not being hit, then you're not being abused. That's just not true. You know that old saying when you were a child, you know, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Words can hurt. Words can hurt really, 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 really badly. Let me tell you, I went through years of hearing some really nasty things. I was called a loser. I was called an idiot. I was called a moron. I was called hatchet face. I was called a loser. I mean, I know this isn't politically correct, but I'm going to say it anyway. I was called a retard. I was called every name in the book. I was called a waste of sperm. I was called a waste of space. I was called shithead. You know, anything that you could think of, he called me that. And then to top it off, he started using some very strange kind of spiritual abuse. And spiritual abuse is really a little bit more insidious because they try to actually control your spirituality, or they mess with your spirituality. So for example, they might use some of your belief systems actually against you in different ways and try to turn things around and make you scared. And those things that they'll do will make you scared to leave them. And part of the process is the fact that they will say, yeah, but no one else is going to want to ever put up with you. And that is something that I have heard from every single relationship. And for years, I thought no one else is ever going to want anything to do with me. Maybe they're right. You know, and it was something that was really, has been a very hard and challenging thing for me to get over, is the fact that, you know, every relationship that I've been in, the guy has said that to me, and it's a huge red flag now. So if I have a boyfriend that says that to me, I'm like, see you later. Not gonna be there for you. Sorry, bud. I'm out. So when you hear those red flags, do your best to get out, but be prepared for that, the chaotic issues of when they're maligning your character. Then, here's the thing. When they see you again, like when you get out of a relationship, I know what I do. For some odd reason, I lose a lot of weight. I don't know why, but I lose weight. and I lose weight, and then you know, I try to keep myself busy with things. Keep yourself busy, and then they try to come in and they hoover you. You know, it's kind of a weird thing to it's kind of a weird word, but that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to come back into your life, so they kind of like circulate around you, and they're like, oh, look at that, she's doing really well. Oh, look at my supply go. Oh, I'm back. You know, so it's that idea of kind of like that vampire mentality of, it's so insidious, and they're like, no, my supply has healed, so I come back to them. It's that kind of idea. So it's just something to be aware of. And the best thing that you can do when someone is in the process of hoovering you and they're trying to romance you again, they gift you gifts, all of these kinds of things, you need to remind yourself of everything that they put you through. So you just stay no contact. Even when they send out their friends, their family, their, you know, 3-ring circus to try and find out what is going on with you and how to reel you back in, don't go back. It's the worst thing you can do. You don't want to end up being their supply for the rest of your life. Unfortunately, they will find another empathic person, and you know, another caring, loving, wonderful individual, and they will do the same thing to them. It's really, it's such a sad phenomenon. But I did want to talk about that because in the I mentioned spiritually being out in nature was one of the most wonderful ways that I could learn how to heal. But one of the most amazing ways that I never expected that I healed the most was when my dog came into my life. I mean, I've had pets before. I grew up riding horses. I've had cats, goats, donkeys, you name it, piggies. They've been there. Animals are so wonderful. But when I received my dog, who had been in 2 different families before he came to me, I don't know the whole truth about him before he got to me. I think that the young lady that had him before me, she was about 4'9" and weighs about 80 pounds. And at 9 months, he was already about 65, 70 pounds and was pulling her around, quite honestly. And so I think, you know, there's one thing to be said for, you know, training your dog specifically with words, but there's another way without words that animals just respond to you and respond to situations. Today, when I was at the dog park, there was one dog that kept running over to me, and she was getting into a play bow, and she was barking. And the owner came over, and she's standing around. She's like, I don't know why she's doing this. She never does this. And I said, I think she just wants to play. And she said, yeah, but she doesn't play like that unless she's inside. And I said, well, she's giving me all the cues and indications that she just wants to play. And it was funny because I would start to walk towards her and her tail was wagging away and she's getting into play bow. And then she goes running around a bench and she goes right back and she starts doing the same thing again. You know, so dogs can really pick up on your energies. Animals can pick up on your energies. And one of the best ways that you can heal yourself is to go to a shelter and find an animal that you can bring into your life that will love you so much and be so loyal to you and so wonderful. And You take all of that love that you have to give and you give it to that animal, and that animal will love you back so much, because you have to remember that dogs and cats, yes, they have memories too, and they have, you know, sometimes respond very differently to some people because, you know, if they were abused, they might not like men that wear hats, you know, kind of a weird thing, but, you know, it happens. You can't wear a hat around some dogs. You know, wearing a mask these days because of COVID in front of some dogs scares the you know what out of them. They'll go and they'll hide under a corner or in a corner or something. And it's a little bizarre, but you know, that's just, you know, the same as a human being. And we do react that way. And so when we're triggered by something that scares you, like maybe it's a man in like a ski hat thing. If you had some kind of trauma with that, it's completely understandable to be scared and to want to run away and hide in a corner. However, try not to do that. Do your best to find coping mechanisms, and some of the best coping mechanisms are just reminding yourself that you're a whole person, that you're a kind person, and that you're a loving person, and then you're empathic, and that you're not in that time period anymore. And yeah, flashbacks suck. I know, I've been there plenty of times. But if you wear bracelets, then you can snap them, or just touch them to try and keep you in your reality and presence, or, you know, hold on to your clothing somewhere like on a cuff or something. No one will even know that you're having a flashback. And if you are having a flashback and you're at work this time of year, I know I've worked in retail, and you start to hear a song and it brings stuff back, you may want to take a moment and actually just go to the back room, go into the bathroom, run your wrists under the hot water. Not hot water, I'm sorry. Hot water will kind of bring out warmth in you, and then switch the hot water off and put on the cold water as cold as you can. Now, I'm not saying I want you to scald yourself with hot water, but a little bit of hot water is fine. And then with cold water, will actually kind of rinse away, you know, some of the angst and bring you into a present moment. So actually, one of the best ways to bring yourself into a present moment, and this is a good thing to do anyway these days, is to wash your hands with that hot water. You know, just get them soaked up, just, you know, get yourself into your present moment, and then when you're rinsing off your hands, use the cold water, and that cold water will kind of bring you back to where you are right now in this present moment, and will help you to heal. Okay. Of course, there's plenty of other ways spiritually to heal from being in a relationship with these types of individuals. And if you're interested in that kind of content, I can put up more. I'm happy to do so. I hope this helps. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, or share. I would appreciate it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate my viewers so much. Thank you. You know, I started this channel just because I want to help people and put this kind of content out there. So just let me know if I'm touching on items that you want me to talk about, or even if you want me to discuss something else, just put it there in the comments and I am happy to discuss them. Okay? Thanks. Bye.